everybody. So today we are going to be talking about the Virgo Lunar Eclipse or Lunar Eclipse in Virgo at 12 degrees 53 minutes of Virgo that takes place on Tuesday, March 3rd of 2026 at 5:37 a.m. U.S. Central Time. You will need to adjust it to wherever you are in the world to know what time this actually takes place for you if you want to know that. But again, Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026 at 5:37 a.m. U.S. Central Time. Now, I'm not going to go into what creates an eclipse and all of that because I already did that in this video. It's either going to be over here or over here in one of the cards above me. But I already went into that in the solar eclipse video that I did, the solar eclipse that took place on February 17th of 2026. So I'm not going to go into all of that again. But I will say that solar eclipses are new moons on steroids because solar eclipses take place during new moons. And then lunar eclipses are essentially full moons on steroids because lunar eclipses take place when a full moon happens. That's the only time a lunar eclipse can take place, just like a solar eclipse can only take place during a new moon. But essentially what we have here in this one is we've got the transiting moon at 12 degrees 53 minutes of Virgo, and it's a south node eclipse because the transiting moon, the lunar eclipse is conjunct the south node. So this is a south node eclipse. And this is opposite the sun at 12 degrees 53 minutes of Pisces, conjunct the north node. Because lunar eclipses, again, full moons on steroids, and full moons are when the sun and the moon are exactly opposing one another in the sky. Now, this particular eclipse is ruled by none other than Mercury Retrograde. Mercury Retrograde in Pisces. And if you are interested in the star cards, I will put the link here in the description box, wherever it is, where you can check them out further because they are a fantastic astrological learning tool. But this particular thing, the fact that this lunar eclipse is ruled by Mercury retrograde in Pisces. And I say that because Mercury is the planetary ruler of Virgo, which is where the moon is, which is where this eclipse is happening. So we've got this little fucker ruling this eclipse. Okay. So I have several thoughts about this one. I'm going to pull the chart here in a few minutes. But, the degrees of the sun and the moon, right? 12 degrees, 53 minutes. It's at 12 degrees, 53 minutes, but 12 degrees, almost 13 degrees, but 12 degrees. This makes me think of the Hanged Man, number 12 in tarot. And I do readings, astrology readings, tarot readings. If you are interested, I will put the link in the description box below if you would like me to read for you. But it makes me think about this card. The Hanged Man can have a lot of different, it can symbolize a lot of different things, but essentially it can point towards waiting, hanging in the balance, lying in wait, observing, watching what's going on. Okay. So that my mind automatically goes to this card when I see the 12s with this eclipse. And then I think about the fact that this eclipse is ruled by Mercury retrograde. And, Mercury retrograde periods, communication can be a little fucky during Mercury retrograde periods. It absolutely can be. Technology can be a little fucky. You might notice that your technology, your technological devices, other things are not functioning quite as they normally would. Depending on what Mercury retrograde is doing to your chart will kind of depend on how much or how little or whatever, or what your chart looks like, But communications in general, one of the things Mercury wants to express is communication. So communication in general can be a little wonky, a little fucky during Mercury retrograde periods. So it's general good advice under Mercury retrograde periods to kind of pause before communicating. Pause before saying something. Think about it, pause. For most people, this is very, very, in a very general sense, right? I'm not looking at your actual chart, but generally speaking, this is a good way to go during Mercury retrograde periods because keep in mind, a transit might be affecting you, but it's also affecting other people too. It's not just affecting you. So even if communication isn't fucky for you, it very well might be fucky for everybody else, which could then turn it fucky for you. This kind of leads me to something that I always say that I forgot to say in the beginning here is you have to take your chart into consideration when you are looking at astro weather, when you are listening to people talk about astro weather or reading about it or what have you. You have to take your own chart into consideration. It is so, so important. So important. What is Mercury retrograde doing to your chart? How does it impact your chart? What is this lunar eclipse doing to your chart? How is it impacting your chart? You have to know, you have to look at your chart to know how it's going to affect you. The things that I'm talking about here are literally just themes, things, ideas, possibilities, things that seem, quote, hot for me as I'm looking at the chart of this eclipse, but you do have to take your chart into consideration to know how anything could play out for you. So keep that in mind about Mercury retrograde. You know, communication, maybe Mercury's not doing a bunch of wonky shit to your chart. Mercury retrograde's not, but it might be to other people, which could then, you know, if other people are communicating in a fucky way, it might come back to you and then you know what I mean? So it does depend on what, even if it's not impacting you in a fucky way, it could by virtue of other people in a collective sense. So generally speaking, Mercury retrograde periods are a better period of time to pause and consider what you want to communicate. It's also a good time to try to tune out noise and a good time for tapping into your intuition, for trying to tap into your intuition more. Because that is something that Mercury retrograde, just in general, wants to be able to do. And the beautiful thing about Mercury retrograde in Pisces is that it can do this because Pisces is so intuitive. It's such an intuitive sign. So Mercury retrograde in Pisces can do this more easily than say like Mercury retrograde in Virgo. So during this lunar eclipse, lunar eclipses, full moons, times of culmination, illumination of things. This makes me think of, okay, so I have some notes. Illumination of things that need to be edited and revised. This is already very Virgoian as it is, but kind of amplified because of the Mercury retrograde period. Now, Mercury retrograde periods are times to, they are generally speaking good times to go back to something. Retrograde periods are, you know, quite literally the retrograde, the apparent retrograde, the apparent retrograde motion, you know, is making the planet appear that it's moving backwards. So quite literally, we are going back, right? There is a sense of, quote, going back. Even more so, though, with this one, because this is a South Node eclipse, because we've got the transiting, where the fuck is the card? We've got the transiting moon. So we have the transiting moon in Virgo, conjunct the South Node. So that's already another sense of another piece of going back to something. The retrograde period, the Mercury retrograde period is going back. And revising and editing. There is a lot of revising and editing that I think can take place under this lunar eclipse, and that quote should, and I put should in quotes because y'all can do whatever the hell you want. But I think that there are things that you might need to go back and edit and revise. From a collective lens, I could see the same thing here. Like collectively, there might be things that we need to edit and revise. Take an intuitive approach to editing and revising. I could see that. I could see that coming up in some way. I totally could. Another thing that comes up for this eclipse, right? The lunar eclipse in Virgo. So we're talking about Virgoian themes. And Virgo energy can deal with a lot of things. It can express itself in a lot of ways, but crisis is one of those ways. And details are one of those ways. Virgo is also ruled by Mercury, so there's an information component to this as well. There's an information component too. But I think of the crisis element, and I think of the details, and I think of, you know, either things being made into a bigger deal than they should be, or things not being made into a big enough deal. And this could be things that are going on right now for you, or, yeah, right now. It could be things that are going on right now, or things from the past, because this is a South Node eclipse, which has a tie to the past, a Mercury retrograde eclipse, retrograde motion goes backwards, right? Going back. So, what could be illuminated for some people, how this plays out for you depends on where this eclipse is happening in your chart, right? What else it's doing to your chart. But it could be that you realize that you did not make a big enough deal out of something. This, again, this could be something happening right now, or it could be something from the past. But it's illuminated that, oh, like, oh shit, I really should have made a bigger deal about this. Like, this was a bigger deal. And it could be a small thing, like a detail, right? Because we're talking about Virgo. It could be a small detail thing. But something like, oh, I should have made a bigger deal about that. Or on the flip side of that, it could be illuminated that, you made too big of a deal out of something. Like, oh wow, I made way too big of a deal out of something, and it's illuminated to me now that I did that. Again, it's like there's that revision and that editing with the Mercury retrograde. There's this going back to, oh, I shouldn't have made as big of a deal about that as I did, or I should have made a bigger deal about it. What that looks like for you, if that fits, does depend on what this is all doing to your chart. But I could see themes like that, themes and things like that coming up as well. Now, another thing that this eclipse could tie in with, illuminating things having to do with health seem possible, right? Virgo energy is health focused, it is healthful. It could be illuminated where you need to be more healthy, where by houses are where or areas of life that things happen in. So where this eclipse is taking place, those areas of life where the where the where the moon in Virgo is, could be illuminating where health needs to be like a focus, or where a healthy approach or healthful approach needs to be taken place, or needs to take place, needs to be taken place. That's not proper English. Um, where you could be healthier, things like that. But also, this the health thing, I mean, Virgo energy does express itself in healthy or healthful ways, or wants to. But the health thing comes up for me because we just had the Saturn Neptune conjunction, the exactitude of that conjunction at 0 degrees 45 minutes of Aries. In that conjunction, I do feel like, among other things, ties in to toxicity. So if there's anything, and this could be actual physical toxicity, physical toxins impacting you or impacting the collective. This could also be toxic things, toxic behaviors that you have, toxic behaviors coming towards you, just toxicity in general. So that happening, just, you know, this eclipse, this lunar eclipse is coming right after that. So it wouldn't surprise me if you notice things that were toxic, whether physically toxic or toxins in other ways, if you started realizing this, or you've started realizing this, and then with this lunar eclipse, you take the approach of, okay, I'm going to get healthier in the house where Virgo is in my chart, or where this lunar eclipse is taking place in my chart. I could see it playing out like that for a lot of people. And keep in mind that health here, Virgo energy does tend to tie in with physical health and mental health, with its affinity for the sixth house. But, this could be spiritual health, things like that, especially let's say you've got Virgo in the 12th house. Spiritual health might very well be playing in here for you. Just kind of depends on what's going on in your chart. I have here in my notes, things that might be illuminated that aren't healthy for you and need to be edited. Again, edited, revised, edits and revisions come up again. This is very intuitive because of the Mercury retrograde. Like Mercury retrograde has it wants to lean into its intuition. It wants to tune out the noise and lean into its intuition. Learning to trust its intuition. So this is very intuitive. Even if you feel that something might be toxic without being able to rationally explain it, this is something to explore, to get healthier, to become healthier. So there is like this illumination of health, things like that. Also, bringing stuff down to earth. Virgo energy, Virgo energy is opposite Pisces, right? Pisces, so intuitive, so sensitive, so psychic, so expresses itself in all of those kinds of ways. And Virgo is much more realistic. It deals much more with the physical real world and having both feet on the ground and being very grounded. And with this lunar eclipse, it does feel like it could be a way, it could be a, how do I want to say this? It could be an illumination of where you can bring that sensitivity, that psychicness, that intuition down to earth. Where does this happen? In what house? What house does this happen? Depends on what house this lunar eclipse is falling in your chart. But it does seem like this lunar eclipse could be a wonderful translator for that, for all of the psychic sensitivity, intuition, all of that. It could be used beautifully in this way. Let me share the screen so that you can follow along with me. Okay, so yeah, this lunar eclipse, as you can see here, 1253, 1253. And then there's a lot of stuff in Pisces, right? During when this lunar eclipse happens, Mars will have just entered Pisces. Mercury retrogrades in Pisces. Venus is in Pisces. Like there's a lot of stuff going on in Pisces. So there is, I guess my point is, there is a lot of energy that needs to be expressed, wants to be expressed, quote, should be expressed through Pisces, right? But Pisces is so intuitive. Pisces is so sensitive. Pisces is so psychic, all of that. Pisces energy does not typically function in the real world, quote, as easily. It would rather be elsewhere. But this lunar eclipse, wherever this lunar eclipse, wherever this moon in Virgo falls in your chart, it might illuminate for you how to bring all of the stuff in Pisces down to earth, how to make it real. Virgo energy strives to make things real. So, any of your drives, anything that drives you that's more intuitive or more, anything like that, anything that drives you, anything that you think, anything that you love or value or whatever. And all of this is a little bit less conscious because we are talking about Pisces. All of these things can be brought down to earth and made real during this lunar eclipse. Again, where this happens depends on where this moon in Virgo is falling in your chart. But it does seem like there is, like, I could see a lot of people being like, whoa, I didn't realize that drove me. Whoa, I didn't realize that I thought that. Whoa, I didn't realize that I valued that, or whatever the case might be. I could see there being a lot of things coming down to earth for a lot of people. And that's where the editing comes in, because it's like you realize these things in the real world and you kind of have to revise or edit the way you've thought about something before, the way you have known something before. There's a lot of grounding that can happen here, I guess. A lot of grounding, a lot of being able to make things real in the real world if you want to utilize it this way. It does seem possible, though. It absolutely seems possible. But the editing, the revising probably does have to happen in order for these things to actually be translated down to earth. Or once they're translated down to earth, they have to be edited and revised, right? Because your whole then conscious way of thinking about drive, thinking about the way you think, thinking about values or love, because that's been brought down to earth, made conscious, the unconscious made conscious. You've got to revise how you relate to these things. So I could see a lot of that kind of stuff coming up. Now, because this is a Mercury ruled eclipse, because the moon is in Virgo, and because Mercury is retrograde, here is my, obviously this is my advice, my opinion. Opinions are like assholes. But for a lot of people, I know a lot of clients right now are feeling very called to, they're starting to feel this way, which makes me think it's only going to get intensified once we get even closer to this eclipse. But people are feeling very called to communicate things, right? Virgo is Mercury ruled, so there is a communication element here. To communicate things, to share things, to respond. Honestly, and this is my opinion, the best thing you could do is to not, if you're not sure how to respond, wait to respond. I would. Full moons or lunar eclipses, there are times of culmination and illumination. That doesn't mean you have to respond. In fact, a lot of the time it's best not to. And I think in this case, because Mercury is retrograde, because it's in Pisces, because there does need to be an intuitive component, because there does need to be a pause that's taken. If somebody illuminates something for you, makes something real for you, share something with you, the best thing you can do is pause and be like, I'll get back to you later about that. Or whatever. Really, in most cases, I would. Generally speaking, I would take that approach. Just because somebody tells you something doesn't mean you have to do anything with it. A lot of the time things don't need an immediate response. We think they do, but they don't. There are some things in life that do require an immediate response, but not everything does. I think in this case, depending on what it is, and I think in most cases it is best just to wait just a little bit. And then, pause, process. If things need to be, if something is shared with you, let's say something is shared with you, it's a small detail, something or another, or something that seems small, a detail that seems small, but it's shared with you and it completely reframes the way you think about things. You might need to take a minute so that editing, so that revising can happen, right? Taking a pause to do that is a good idea. Overall, I don't think that this eclipse is particularly difficult. I think it's got its difficult points, but I don't think it's like the most difficult one I've ever seen. I think pausing, taking a breath before speaking, thinking before speaking, thinking before sharing, thinking before responding is a good idea. If it's something really super major that you need to respond to, or that somebody needs to respond to, or anything super major, I would definitely wait until this eclipse passes, maybe even Mercury retrograde once Mercury goes direct, which is on March 20th, maybe. But I also feel like some of y'all won't be able to do that, and that is okay. Because I know a lot, like I was saying, a lot of clients are being told things are already starting to illuminate right now. Things are already wanting to be said right now. If you feel super called to say something during this period of time, I would just really try to figure out how you want to say it, how you want to structure it, how you want to say it, how you want it to come out, so that it lands in the best way possible and so it's as clear as possible. That is my advice. If you have to do something about this right now, while this eclipse energy is in play. Anyway, I am going to go ahead and head off, but I'll put the link in the description box where you can get a reading from me if you would like one, if you want to talk about the eclipse or you want to talk about anything. I'm here. I'll also put the link in the description box for the star cards, Mercury retrograde, for the star cards if you're interested in them, and my course, The Fundamentals of Chart Weaving, the 2026 edition, is open for registration right now. I'll put the link in the description box where you can check that out too, or where you can register, all that good stuff. If you feel like sharing in the comments how you feel like this eclipse will play out for you, or if you're watching this right after the eclipse happens or whatever, how it did play out for you, how it has played out for you, how you think it has. And or if you just want to share anything else, I love talking to y'all or writing to y'all. Anyway, I will see you all later.